we've chosen to focus on media and journalism, not least because we live in a time where there's great upheaval in the media situation. And I should know, I used to be a journalist back in the old days, and things are pretty different now. The proliferation of social media that complement traditional media has its upsides and downsides. But there's one thing that I find deeply troubling. There seems to be a part of today's zeitgeist that there is no longer a universal consensus that the establishment of irrefutable and agreed upon facts as a foundation from which reasonable disagreements on policies may be inferred, that should permeate public discourse. Alternative opinions are a strength to a vibrant society and should be encouraged. Alternative facts are not. We can only combat this worrying trend if we promote truthful, objective, thorough, and fact-based journalism that the public can trust. The more serious a topic, the more necessary this is. And the Women, Peace and Security agenda is very serious. President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud has declared that the WPS agenda will be a priority when Somalia now has a seat at the UN Security Council, as it was for Norway, when we were privileged to sit at the Council at the beginning of this decade. It is my hope that today we will be able to explore how the media can contribute to informed and enlightened discourse that will lead to the best possible policy making when it comes to the big challenges and the complex issues of, that women, peace, and security entail. We look forward to perspectives from political policymakers, informed observers, and representatives of the media. Our first speaker is Her Excellency Deputy Minister Bada. Please, Madam, the floor is yours.
Esteemed journalists, representatives from media organizations, civil societies, partners, and distinguished participants, good morning. It's an honor to be here today as we gather to discuss the critical challenges journalists face when covering women, peace, and security issues. The role of the media in shaping narrative, amplifying women's voice, and holding stakeholders accountable in peace and security process cannot be overstated. However, we recognize that journalists covering these topics often encounter numerous obstacles ranging from security threats, limited access to reliable information, and societal biases to institutional constraints that hinder gender-sensitive reporting. Women's participation in peace and security process is not just a matter of fairness, but an essential for sustainable peace and inclusive development. Yet, media coverage remains inadequate or at times misrepresentative of the contributions, struggles, and rights of women in conflict and post-conflict settings. This workshop provides an essential platform to discuss these challenges, share experience, and explore solutions that will enhance responsible, ethical, and gender-sensitive journalism. The Ministry of Family and Human Rights Development remains committed to promoting press freedom, safeguarding journalists' rights, and fostering an environment where media professionals can report without fear and bias. We recognize that strong, independent, and gender-responsive journalists is key to advancing the women, peace, and security agenda and ensuring that the voices of women in peace building are heard and valued. I encourage all of you to engage in open and constructive discussion today. Let this be a step forward, strengthening the collaboration between media, government institutions, and civil society in advancing gender-sensitive reporting, ensuring that women's roles in peace and security are rightful, acknowledged, and amplified. Thank you so much.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Subax wanaagsan. We have a translator. She will be summarizing after I'm done. So, good morning, honorable guests, the Deputy Minister of Women and Human Rights, Hon Hanan Habdi Bare, all right? Abdulaziz Bare, and the Deputy Minister of Information and Tourism and Culture, on Abdurrahman Yusuf Al Abdallah, who will be joining us later. Esteemed colleague from media outlets, distinguished representatives from UN entities, embassies, and civil society organizations. It is a tremendous privilege to stand before you today as we discuss a topic of a profound importance: the impact of media on women's political participation in Somalia. As the Executive Director of the Somali Media Women Association, this issue is not just a professional for me. It is deeply personal. It represents aspiration and struggles of countless Somali women who wish to make their voices heard in shaping our future nation. Media, as we know, is one of the most powerful tools of influence in our society. It has the potential to amplify voices, challenge stereotypes, and foster dialects. However, it also possesses the capacity to perpetuate harmful narratives and silence marginalized groups. For Somali women seeking political inclusion, media serves both as a challenge and an opportunity. Let's first acknowledge the challenges. Somali women face a persistent cultural and societal barrier to political participation. Media portrayal often exacerbate these barriers by framing women as secondary actors in leadership, if they receive any mention at all. Many media platforms prioritize male voices, reinforcing the narrative that leadership and governance are masculine domain. Furthermore, gender attacks in traditional and social media disproportionately target women in politics. Our 2023 reports found that female politicians receive 60% more negative media coverage than their male counterparts. Their personal lives are scrutinized, their credibility questioned, and their integrity often attacked. This discourages many women from stepping forward, fearing from public humiliation and reputational harm. I recall a young Somali journalist who faced relentless online abuse after moderating a political debate. Instead of backing down, she used social media to counter misinformation, disinformation, and eventually built a strong platform advocating for fair representation. Her story is a testament to resilience. But no woman should have endured such a challenge alone. Yet, despite this challenge, the media offers immense opportunity for transformation across Somalia. We are witnessing the rise of platforms to provide space for women to share their perspectives, connect with like-minded individuals, and advocate for policy change. SOMWA, for example, has been at the forefront of these efforts. Through training programs, we have equipped hundreds of Somali women journalists and politicians with the skills to tell their own stories and highlight the contribution of women leaders. By amplifying these voices, we are challenging the state's quota and inspiring the next generation of women to take their rightful place in politics. Media is not just a mirror reflecting society. It is a tool for shaping it. By promoting a positive and diverse portrayal of female leaders, the media can normalize the idea of women in political roles. Initiatives that highlight women's achievement, document their journey, and provide platform for them to engage in public are very critical. Social media in particular has emerged as a powerful equalizer. It allows women to bypass traditional gatekeepers and speak directly to the public. On platforms like Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram, Somali women have organized campaigns, advocated for policy reforms, and built movements that demand inclusion. The responsibility to harness the media for positive change does not rest on women alone. We need allies across all sectors: media organizations, policymakers, civil society, and international community. Here's what we think we can work together. adopt a gender-sensitive reporting by ensuring balanced coverage of male and female political participations. Provide fair access for women political commentary, analysis, and leadership stories. Train journalists on responsible, unbiased reporting to eliminate gender stereotypes. For policymakers, strengthen legal protection against online harassment and defamation targeting women in politics. Introduce media literacy program to educate the public on gender-sensitive reporting and news consumption. Fund women-led media initiatives to amplify female voices in politics and governance. For civil society and international partners, we think they should invest in mentorship program for women in media and politics, support independent journalists that challenge misinformation and gender bias, promote a public awareness campaign on women's leadership to shift the cultural perception. So Somalia is not only alone facing this challenge. Across Africa, women leaders have used the media effectively to break barriers. Countries like Rwanda and Ethiopia has implemented gender quotas in media representation, ensuring that women's political achievements are highlighted. The African Union Agenda 2063 and the UN Sustainable Development SDG 5 gender equality service as a guiding framework for increasing women's political participation. Somalia must align with this global commitment and take bold step toward this media inclusivity. Imagine Somalia, where women leaders not questioned but celebrated, where young girls see female politicians on their screens and believe they too can do one day. This is not just an ideal, it is our future within our reach, and the media plays a decisive role in making it a reality. At SOMWA, we remain committed to supporting Somali women in their quest of political participation. But we cannot do it alone. Let's work together to create a media landscape that uplifts, empowers, inspires. Let's ensure that Somali women are no longer observers of politics, but active participants shaping our future. Thank you so much for listening to me.
oo ah arin muhiim ah waxa maanta nasiib u yeelanay oo ka soo qayb galay arintaanaytun wasiirad ku-xigeenteena oo wasaaradda haweenka iyo xuquuqul insaanka madam Xanaan Cabdilcasiis Barre iyo maxay ahaayeen safiirka attaché-ga oo safaaradda Norway oo la dhaho maxay ahaayeen Karsten, I hope I pronounced your name right. asagana maxay ahaayeen dadka arintaanaytun ka soo qayb qaabiyeen waxaan maxad u celinaynaa hay'adda maxay ahaayeen Somalia Media Women Association oo xubin weyn arintaanaytun ka soo gashay oo maxay ahaayeen abaabulkeeda iyada hormuud u ahayd u taliso Maryan walaashan Maryan hadda noo qodbaysay على مهم حواي حفلة نيتون workshop كانت وحلوة تلاقي إن محيطنا highlight لقو سمايو أو لصوب نيجو مهم كألا هاي إن دمر كصوماليات لقو مثلو مرك إن قطو ورفافينتا وربحينتا إن أي وربحينتا لو استعماله أرين خرمرين كرتو دمر كصوماليات مرك إن قطو سياسة ده مرك إن قطو حقوق الإنسان كذا مرك إن قطو إن سيد ورفافينتا أي أجا قيب جلان مدة كلا ومهمة وحواي إن محيط أنا لو أجاده سيدي محيط أنا أبابولين لو سمعنا لها دمرك سيدي مركز سياسة إكساق بجلايان لو أرك وحفي عن إنه يتوح عن لو أركن إن محيط أنا أجندده هذا UN كبا أدكسن أو أحور مرنتا دمرك إن محيط أنا وطن كنا وكانوا قتمد كالن مال قاب وين كرجشايت هاي مدة كلا ومهمة وحواي إن محيط أنا هذا وحي قدم بقى إن wadatashiga markay noqoto dhinaca siyaasadeed in dumarka Soomaaliyeed ay ka noqdaan kaalin weyn oo aan maxay tahay loo arkin in maxay tahay dhibaato ay u keenayaan ee bulshada maxay tahay dadka muuqda ay yihiin mid kale waxa waay in maxay tahay gabdhihi hadda soo karaayo jiilka hadda soo karaayo inay u arkaan inay media ay ka muuqan karaan warbixinta ay ka muuqan karaan in maxay tahay ay noqoto meel horumarkooda lagu dabaaldego oo aan noqonin meel oo niyada laga dilo mid kale waxa waaye in waxa jirto in dumarka qaarkood ilaa iyo 60% ilaa iyo 60% inay mararka qaarkood ay helaan maxay tahay warbixin oo negative ah oo niyadil ah inay helaan intaasna maxay tahay laga hortago oo la bilaabo maxay tahay sidii loo heli lahaa warbixin oo saameyn xun aan u yeelin dumarka oo laakiin caawiso oo cadaaladna ah in maxay tahay la sameeyo horumar oo bulshada dhana oo bulshadina maxay tahay dumarka ay ka muuqdaan waliba marka ay noqoto wadamada oo dhibaatada ay soo gaarto wadankeena oo kala kamida oo muddo xoogaa badan conflict ku jirtay in maxay tahay marka la tabinayo nabadda iyo amniga in maxay tahay maadaama dumarka iyo ilmaha ay yihiin dadka ugu badan ee dhibaatooyinkaasi soo gaarto inay helaan warbixin oo iyaga maxay tahay cabashadooda si xabaqtiran oga hadasho waxaa kaloo muhiim ah in maxay ahayd inay la ogaado in kaalinta dumarka ay ku leeyihiin arrin markay noqoto wadanka dib u dhisidiisa iyo maxay ahayd iyo markay noqoto hanaanka wadanka hadda uu galayo siyaasadda doorashada iyo nabadda guud kolley hadda hadallada hadda la soo sheegay kolley waxaa waaye introduction waaye waxay bilaabeen waxay sal u yeelanayaan in maxay tahay discussionkeena iyo doodeena ay noo bilaabato oo maxay tahay kulligeen aan dad wax ka sheego arrintan wax ka sheegaan ay noqdaan dad ka soo qayb gala ay noqdaan oo maxay tahay dood wanaagsan dhexdeena ee marta maanta soo marka waxaan u rajeynayaa kulligeen walaalayaal in wada tashi fiican maanta noo dhaco mahadsanidin
experienced and marginalization in every aspect, this being one of them. So I will take the first point, which is the cultural and societal norms in the country have worked against women. For example, in peacemaking efforts, the male mostly dominate. So for example, the media institutions or the media and outlets put focus on peacemaking efforts that are driven by men. So the women do not get the equal opportunities, and they do not get the right coverage when peace efforts are talked about.
My name is Ifra Hassan Noor. I am a journalist. I'm also the co-founder and the director of Kena Africa, a non-profit media platform that is working towards creating social impact through storytelling. So if I go straight to the question, I think, as my brother mentioned, there's cultural perceptions of what a woman can do or cannot do is really something that is influencing the reporting of women, peace and security stories. And by that, most journalists, particularly women journalists, lack representation. And what I mean by representation is often you see men are the ones who are dominating the conversations on peace and security and governance. So not having representation of women, either women leaders or women decision makers or women in powers who speak on peace and security hinders that representation for women participation in political landscapes. So if journalists were to get representation, if they were to get women voices that speak on governance and speak on peace and security, then I think we will be able to bridge that gap that is there right now. But also I think women journalists, particularly among the journalists, they lack access. And by access I mean access first beginning from the media institutions that they work on. They don't get that priority to go report on things that involve peace and security. It's often the men that are preferred because they are believed to be more suitable for that role to speak on such matters. So if women lack that access, first from their institutions, there's the barrier that hinders them to go through the creation of such stories. So I'll leave it there for now, and then I'll give the...
My name is Kirsten Young. I'm with the United Nations Human Rights here. And this is a bit naughty, but I would be remiss if I didn't say this. We have a panel talking about key challenges, and both my colleagues have talked about cultural stereotypes, but it was the man who started the panel, and there are 2 women on it. So, and there are 2 mics. Notice where how they're being shared. I'm making a joke, but it's actually, it's an important one, because this is actually it was a very natural thing to happen, which is unfortunate. We need to start changing that. I think the 2, from where I sit from human rights, I think the 2 pieces I would see with the challenges, the gender stereotypes, and one of the things I see is that the female journalists are sort of categorized to talk about soft issues, the typical sort of things that we think about. And yesterday, for example, and I'll just give an example, it was a Southwest state signed, the president there, Laftagoren, signed the disability bill into disability rights law, which was absolutely amazing. And I had to reach out for people to pick it up, because disability is sort of seen as a soft issue. But it slides very, very quickly into extremely, extremely sensitive issues. So we might talk about, women's need for such and such, feeding their children. But then you start talking about bodily integrity, and you'll soon quickly get into a discussion about, women are trying to promote sodomy. It goes very, very quickly into that type of discussion, which we've seen with the gender policy, and we've seen with the what was used to be called the Sexual Offences Bill. And I think that's a really, really tough transition, and ends up in being very uneven reporting on women, peace and security issues. And I think then the second thing is workplace harassment. And again, I sit as a human rights office, we receive allegations, but we have to have 3 independent sources. And this means it's very, very difficult to try and establish this, because people will simply not either report or back down after a certain issue. And yesterday, the President, Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, signed the Somali Labour Code into law, which is really exciting. I think the last one was from 1975, and it does have a provision on gender discrimination in the workplace. It's going to be a very, very brave woman who brings the first case under that. But someone will have to do it if there's going to be change. You need that type of emblematic change to transform society. But it will be taken a huge emotional toll, which Marianne mentioned, in terms of the journalist you spoke of who was trolled for speaking out. Thank you.
qaybta human rights-ka qofka kale waxaa waaye ifraax oo ah qof media ah oo wariye ahaan jirtay haddana ku jirto NGO-na leh oo maxay tahay la link media Kenya Africa iskale iyo walaalkeen Cabdinaasir Cabdiqani Cabdiqani oo asagana maxay tahay media personality media council house Somalia matalayo su-aasha ugu horeysa oo la weydiiyay waxay ahayd maxaa waaye caqabooyinka hortaagan journalistiyaalka Soomaaliya marka ay noqoto inay ka tabiyaan arrimaha neetun oo ah maxay tahay dumarka amniga iyo nabadda oo la xiriir kuwa walaalkeena ku bilaabay Cabdiqani oo ka hadlay maxay tahay inay jirto waxyaabo dhaqan ah social norm waddankeena ka jiro oo maxay tahay marka ay noqoto inay qof dumar codkar noqoto oo ku arrimaha ay ka hadasho in maxay tahay bulshadii aysan ku u dhaga furnaanin in qofkii maxay tahay loo arko qof iska qeylinayo ama qof maxay tahay oo wax muhiim aan ka hadlaynin soo taas way jirtaa dhaqankina maxay tahay wuxuu sameeyay in maxay tahay arrimaha media maadaama waddanka uu xoogaa dhibaato ka jirtay sidaan walaal iga rahlo laakiin sida u fahmo waxa waaye maadaama ay isu jirin dumarka aysan lahayn meel ay ka galaan arrimahanaytun access-kii waxaasaytun in iyadana caqabad ay ku yeelatay marka maxay tahay arrintaanaytun oo dumarka iyo amniga iyo nabadda laga hadlayo walaashan ifraaxa qabsatay ifraax waxay tiri maxay tahay in marka iyada maadaama iyada ahaan qof ay tahay arrimahanaytun ka soo shaqeeyay oo experience arrimahan u leh in ay jiraan caqabado oo bulshadii ah acceptance-ga bulshadii in bulshada maxay tahay mararka qaarkood aysan diyaar u ahayn in dhibaato kale ay jirto oo xataa gabdhihii inay kooba journalist ay noqdaan xataa ay adag tahay because dib waxaa jira maxay tahay oo bulshadeed in maxay tahay guud ahaan sida hadda caqabadaha ugu horeeya waxaa waaye dadkii access to human rights des meesha jirin ama dadkii human resource aysan dumarka aysan u badnayn miidiyihii iyadana maxay tahay waxay ku yeelanaysaa caqabada waxay ku yeelanaysaa in maxay tahay laga hadlo arrimaha neetan oo dumarka iyo amniga iyo nabadeynta dan Kirsty Yanga maxay tahay ka hadashay oo iyadana qabatay Kirsty waxay taabatay in xataa markii panelka ay hadlayeen inuu wiilka bilaabay taasna maxay tahay aysan xumaan ahayn laakiin ay in a way ay sharxayso in rag inay ka horeeyaan dadkii xumaana maaha laakiin waxa waaye mid bulshadii sida ay tahay waay Kirsty waxay ka hadashay in maanta in dawladda xataa hadda horumar ay sameynayso arrimaha neetun ay wax ay ka qabanayso in madaxweynaha South West Koonfur Galbeed uu siixay sharcigii oo dadka oo disability-ga lafta gareenha Cabdicasiis in maxay tahay ay sameeyeen sharcigaas oo la ansixiyay dadka maxay tahay oo disabled-ka ah in maxay tahay xuquuq hadda ka bal xuquuq oo qoran in maxay tahay la sameeyo oo maxay tahay lagu daray maxay tahay sharciyada waddankaanaytan ka jira taas kale waxaa sii raacday in madaxweynaha Xasan Sheekh Maxamuud uu shalay siixay sharcigii oo shaqada iyo xuquuqda shaqaalaha waxaa jiro ay dumarka ay la kulmaan oo kale oo Kirsty koow ay sheegtay in ay jirto wax ah shaqaaleynta inka kala walaal gabdhihii in goobaha shaqada ay la kulmaan maxay tahay xadgudub oo ama dadka iyaga la shaqeeya ama dadka iyaga ka sareeya ay ku xadgudbaan haday noqoto ma arkino sexual harassment iyo in maxay tahay qofkii biiqsi lagu sameeyo bullying waxaas lagu sameeyo dumarkan ay u badan yihiin dadka waxaas ay tun badana la kulmo soo marka hadda waxa maadaama sharcigaas ay tun la sameeyay kulay waxay tiri Kirsty qofka ugu horeeyo dumarka oo maanta geesi noqon karo arintaas ay tun ka hadli karo at least hadda maanta opportunity ay jirto qofkii uu helo platform oo arrimaha neetun oo ka hadlo oo banaanka uu soo dhigo dhibka neetun baa la geystay teeda kale san iyaga ahaan xafiiskooda way helaan dacwooyin way helaan laakiin dacwooyinka way adag tahay because saddex qof wada marqaati loo baahan yahay 3 witnesses oo wixii ku marqaati oo sameeyay taasna way adag tahay koob qofka markuu cabasho noocaas oo kala sheegay waa dareemi kartaa dhaqan ahaan xushmad ahaan qofka moogtahay geesi ku dhiirintaas ay qofka ma lahaanayo soo marka waxa soo caqabadaha saytun ay ka mid tahay soo adiga kulay marka la soo koobo waxa waaye waxyaabaha oo caqabeynta ku ah dumarka iyo nabadda iyo amniga markay noqoto in arrimahan laga hadlo waxa waaye dhaqankii iyo maxay ahaatay systemyada iyo marka sidoo aan jirin sharciyada aan jirin laakiin hadda bilaabanayaan iyo maxay ahaatay iyo tababarkii iyo shaqaaleynta dumarka oo ku yar maxay tahay arrimaha media soo walaalayaal waxaan rabaa in maadaama dadka panelka ay su'aalaha sidan ay ka jawaabeen haddii dadka meesha jooga ay qabaan su'aalo haday rabaan inay iyagana tooda ay ka dhiibtaan so I've asked questions to the audience
usan lahayn muxuu tarayaa example aan soo qaadanaya sharcigii difaaci lahaa meediyaha waxaa bulshada rayidka iyo gruubka meediyaha owneriska waxay ka dagaalameen 20 sano u dambeysay 2018 nasiib wanaag waxaa saxeexay madaxweynihii farmaajo qaabka ismeedka guddigii madaxa banaanaa oo xuquuqdooda ilaalin lahaa guddigii madaxa banaana ee xuquuqdooda ilaalin lahaa qaab ismeedkiisii ayaa la sharciyey waxaa dhacday sanadkii hadda aan soo dhaafnay 2024 in dawladdan hadda jirto oo maanta aan jeclaan lahaa in wasiirka warfaafinta uu fadhiyo waxaan aniga intaan usoo maray waxay ahayd inaan maanta helo wasiirka warfaafinta ama ku-xigeenkiisa ama waxaan u jeedaa wish oo ka socdo waxaan jeclahay in dirgaasi waxaa dhacday waxay ahayd sharcigaas wuxuu dhigayaa papers badan aan kasoo saarnay baarlamaanka guddiga amnigaan kala shirnay waxa uu dhigaya sharcigaas guddiga in 3 meelood oo ka imaado 9 xubnood oo ka koobma 3 xubnood waxaa keenaya media ownerska madaxa bannaan 3 xubnood waxaa keenaya bulshada rayidka saddex xubnoodna waxaa keenayay federaalka, sagaalkiiba waxaa keensaday federaalka, isla markaasna waa shaqaalihii dowladda oo qaarkood la taliyaal madaxweyne iyo la taliyaal prime minister. marka maxay taraysaa warqad qurux badan iyo sharci qurux badan oo la fulinayo? waa mid waxaan weydiinaya gabadhaas. waxaa kale oo aan ku daraya waxa waaye wixii ilaalin wasaaradda iyada midaan weydiinaya, wasaaradda oo annaga access uma lihinba meelahaas inaan gaarno, laakiin maanta nasiib wanaag waa u mahadnaqayaa hay-addan oo Maryam horkacaysa iyo safaaraddan noo fududaysay inayna meesha soo fadhiistaan meesha. waxaan u sheegaa mushkiladda ugu weyn waxaa waaye oo haysato guddiya waxa waaye waxaa ogtihiin adduunka dowladda markay dhinac u beerto waxa soo xakameeya waxaa waaye independent commissions. commissionadii hadda markuu Trump ku dhawaaqay waa cashay wax badan in laga joojiyey oo la yidhi no, annaga commissionadii noo dhihi lahaa wasaaradda human right-ka iyo qoyska meeshay fadhidaan. waxaa la aaway guddigii human right-ka, aaway guddigii garsoorka, aaway guddiyadii madaxa banaana, anti corruptionkii aaway, waxaas dadkii noo dhihi lahaa aaway. marka taasna challengeska ugu weyn waxaa meesha hadday sharciyad jirin iyo qof sharciga wixii ilaalin lahaa wax soconaayo ma jirto. hadal fiican meel u qoray ma soconaayo. midda kale waa iga raali ahaada waxaysana experience. marka security waxaan u sheegayaa isagana cabdiqali wiilkeyga waxa waaye waxaa ogtihiin security-ka nationalka iyo stateskaba inay hal gabar ku jirin. bulshada rayidka muddo waxay usoo dagaalamaysa at least ha lagu daro wasaaradda qoyska iyo human right guddiga oo aadihin security ha lagu daro, ilaa hadda dagaalkiiaan ku jirnaa. marka waxaa meediyaha waa meesha keliya bridgeka keliya oo annaga maxkamad nooga burburkii dhan waxaa u malaysaa hadda in annagii bulshada reedkiina aan daciifnay, meediyihiin nala daciifay. maxaa u sabab marka waxaa u sabab annagii bulshada reedkii iyo meediyihii ee qaarkeen waxay noqdeen politician, ayagii politician. marka waxaa waaya ceebtaada in la sheegaa fiican meesha aan ka urtimi. ayagii yaa koray politician aan noqonay. example waxaa waaye dhowr sano ka hor madaxweynaha hadda jiro wuxuu ahaa nin ila dagaalamo oo bulshada reedka ka imaaday. ninka hadda aan sugaayo wasiir ku-xigeenka warfaafinta ah wuxuu ahaa wariyaashii la dagaalamayay oo markii laga burburiyey idaacadaha aan la qaylinayo. ayagiyaa hadda ku fadhiyo. marka maxaa la yiri ruqo ninkeedii dabada hayo ma kacayso. marka problemka ugu weyn aan kusoo gabagabeynaya waxaa waaye horta role model way qabaan. cabdiqani oo ku sheega gabdhaha role model way qabaan. 1968kii xaawiyarey waxay la tartantay 9 rag ah ceelbuur ayadaa soo baxday. maxaa ku dhacay 6 bilood markay baarlamaanka fadhida aan yiri habartaa maxay naga dhex qabanaysaa, sharciyaa lala tiigsaday waa laga saaray. marka waxa waaye problemka jiro waxa waaye culture-ka aad sheegteen waa run, culture barrier jiro oo aan u saamaxayn. gabdhaha waxbaa lagu sheegaa, haddana waxa waaye gabdhihii fan ma haystaan. radioyaasha dhan ownariskiyaa waa rag. marka raaliga ahaada.
Okay. So the center also acts as an archive. They collect a lot of the information, but it does not necessarily also advocate for women. But I will come to that. So Madame Dunia, her first comments were towards you, Kirsten. I mean, she mentioned that having the actual law passed, it's fine. I mean, it's written well and everything, but the media law, the Independent Commission of Media Law, right?
No, the media law was passed to create the media council.
Okay.
And it's a second revision. There's advocacy for a third revision.
So basically she said that with that, okay, so now the obstacle is the implementation. When it's approved, because to actually implement it, there are issues. And some of the issues highlighted were that the commission itself was, the selection of the commission was done in a manner that was not all inclusive. Initially, the intention was to have 9 members that represent media, independent media, from the civil society and the community, and 3 from the federal, so 9. At the moment, as it stands, it's all selected by the federal government, and it's all representatives that already work for the ministry. So basically, there, the exclusion of independence is there. So the commission, even if it's elected, it will not act as independent because it represents the government. And going back to the history of this nation, we had a communist system and a dictator. So basically, that independence is not there, even if the commission works. This is how I understand, yeah? The other issue is when it comes to security, all the commissions of security, the ones from the federal member states and the federal level, none of them have a female member. And that is something that she has advocated for and they have advocated for. So it's well and good to talk about media, but the representation from the grassroots, especially with the commissions, in particular those of the security, there is no female representative, and that has been advocated for quite some time. The other obstacles but she did highlight one important thing, which was that media is the breach. Media is the only platform at the moment that advocates for women causes. Media is the only access that they have, because obviously with the government not being so accessible, the media is where such concerns are open and could be aired. But however, she's indicated that all the radio owners, all the radio station owners or the CEOs are all male. So again, there is not a female representation even within the leadership of the media. However, it still is an avenue that is fair in general, that women can access and use and can air their issues. The media also has campaigned, in particular, the last head of Somali election commission, Madam Halima. The media also advocated for her. However, in the end, she was pushed out because she is a female. I mean, that was slightly off the tangent, but I hope I got that right. The other issue that women face is that because the media is now not so independent, it can actually ultimately become a gatekeeper if it's not monitored very well. Ultimately, what the Madam has said was what we need is a fair implementation on the ground. Once all these laws are passed, they need to be implemented on the ground, and that is where the actual challenge will be. I hope I covered everything. Yeah.
When you introduced the centre. And the archive, I think, is very, very important, given that so much has been lost here, and also the sort of powerful tradition that you have, the oral culture has also been ruptured with so much conflict and displacement. On the media law, we actually, my team produced 2 reports last year, and they're just reports. So it's not about implementation, but one of them was on, it was freedom of expression, a public good, because we see the media as a public service to raise very important social justice issues. This is our, I think, 4th report. In fact, our first ever report when we started here as human rights was on freedom of expression, because in the human rights world, as soon as you see attacks on freedom of expression, it's an early warning that things are going in a negative trend in a society. So that's why it was our first ever report back in 2015. Every year, in every report, you'll see that we have talked about the media law and the media council for exactly the same reasons that you've identified. You can't have media council that is only government entities because it is no longer independent. What you do with that council, you have the same issues globally, and so what do? You use it for other things, but certainly not for independence. So how to harness what it might achieve. But implementation is done by the government. It's not done by, unfortunately, civil society or the UN or embassies. It's done by the government.
But they come with pressure group.
Of course, we have to have that. And one thing we've been advocating is for the Third Amendment of the media law. The other thing that needs to be changed is the penal code, which is the false news provision in the penal code, which criminalizes activity. Anything can be deemed false news. Anything I said today could be deemed, I could be prosecuted, right? So that has to be changed. In most countries, it's a civil liability. So that's another piece of work that we've been on for a long time. The media is the fourth estate. It's to hold us all accountable. I think what Marianne was talked about, though, is also really important in terms of the social media. While it's a positive space that can be used and harnessed, it's got huge challenges in terms of the ethics, professionalism, and trolling, which are bullying and all these pieces. And I think the ministry, we were up there this week at the Ministry of Family Affairs and Human Rights, and one of the priorities of the ministry, which I think is really interesting, that's being done by this ministry, is focusing on disinformation and misinformation. And that goes back to my point that I made at the beginning, when the gender policy, this is back in 2015, it was horrible stuff that came out about the ministry staff involved and anyone else who was advocating. And we saw civil society change as a result. They stopped speaking out. You'd have I've got a couple of colleagues in the room who do these workshops, but it's small, not too much coverage because of these issues. So I think any type of work we do on women, peace and security needs to be backed up by focusing on disinformation and misinformation. So I think that's an important piece. On the balance of the commissions, yes, again, these are government appointments, and I think one of the things I have seen less public pressure in the last few years, basically since 2022, on these really, really challenging issues. So you have to find a space for it, and one of the areas is investigative pieces, really in-depth research that end up being published, and doesn't have to be in mainstream media, it can be in other forums. Thank you, sorry it's a bit long.
So my part was, which I'm going to answer again, the question on media council, but there was the issue of, I did not say there is no women, no role models, women role models. There are not enough role models. They are, but then you cannot find them enough. For example, you need a topic on health, you need a topic on security, you need a topic on every aspect. Can you find a right woman who is who is knowledgeable, who has familiar with the topic? So the issue is because of the norms that existed, you cannot find enough women as a journalist. So sometimes you end up interviewing or covering a man on a man topic, yes. So, yes, that is one of the challenges as a journalist who wants to cover a topic, and a female-led topic. You might be short of people to cover the story with. And on the issue of media law, it was asked to Madame, but I think I can elaborate more, and because I'm also advisor to the Ministry of Information. The media law was passed and signed into law by the President after years of consultation. It's almost 10 years of consultation to and fro with the private media, civil society, and the media law provisioned the creation of a media council. And it also provisions the creation of a public broadcasting, which is yet to be set up. And the public broadcasting will replace the Ministry of Information. The national TV, the SOMWA and Radio Mogadishu will no longer be state-owned. It will be public broadcasting under the Public Broadcasting Board. And Media Council was not appointed by the Ministry of Information. It was appointed by the cabinet on a vote, and it consists of 9 members, and they are not the government employees. Just for clarification, it's not a defensive point, but clarification. And the vice president is she's from BBC. The chairman of the media council is the president of Somali cable TV, a private-owned TV. The vice chair is Fadumo. She's BBC. She works for the BBC, and she's stationed in Nairobi. So they are not government. Yes, yes, they are private. They actually work in the private sector as of today. So there's a clarification. So and then again, if you want to correct, and I'm sure there might be grievances on the procedure followed. They might be private, but there might be what you call selectiveness. You can choose the person you want from the private sector. I can agree with you. The fairness, the integrity, you might question it, but then they are from the private. In terms of by the book, by the structure, the law was followed, but then on favorism might have applied. That and you can argue that point. But then the mandate is 3 years. 1.5 years is gone. In 1.5 years, their mandate expires. It will be a time to form a new commission, and you will have. You can still argue on whom to consult, because the civil society have to appoint their 3 members, submit names. The private needs to submit their 3 names, and improve on the existing team, which on paper is the actual team as per the law. Thank you.
عقبات اللفت كده ماشي وحقيقة هبطت organizer وسمينا حقيقة حاول قدرتي وحلا عسوبي كويس كل شيء تقولها وربعين تقارنك وحلا بس هو تجاي قرق لا جرتو وربعين تمدح بنان وياش اسكت تجاي اسم وياه قرق وربعين تمدح قرق راح وحقيقة هذا معنا أنفي وهذا ماشي كسعود هذا صوت قولنا وفيره وحلا مدك إن كان الله قصابسن سعيد عبد القادر وحوش قالها وربعين تقارن وكهلي حضري قالها دمان طول ما كفيس وحوش بدونيها إنه كيمة سومال كيمة إنه كيمة لكن في حقيقة إيه سعيد هذا حنا كورنتو ولا تليه وزارة الوفافين كتير سموا منو لا تليه وزارة الوفافين كتير سموا هذا المدحوينا ده بشيء يسوي سعيد يلا بشيء يسوي إنه سمدح برنامج وعاري ساعدنا أديك communication قبل سنة هذا advisor أو حكتها وزارة الوفافين سنة ما بسوق هذا ليه فكوا حاربنا ولما ذاك الدين لا طبق خابينا إن له أوجي هذا معناه أما صاحبك العالمي كأتو أما كل الجداه أتو وربلهم كدبعت هذا كيف هكذا نقولين أما نحات هذا نص أحجرنا عجلوا الله بقولوا الباهين عجلوا ماشى دولة ده أسكال السجاع تحضر بكافير ست حتى وحكون جرو لا تليه وزارة دقاش عندك إيه أنا حكودي كعانك من جو وحاجونا الدنيا عسيرة جونا وحكش قيلنا الديمقراطية كشقيلنا هدي قف وزارتي وقاشان بيجوجو وكعانك بصبر بارك وأمسن بس دي أمديه وأمسنها سواء قبل نحو وحرة مديرة واحد حيث مال مركروت تدرس كل شيء أنا قاعد بين كل شيء هنا عقبالها مركا آدم مركا يوجهها يعني سجين سوماليا طمك اللي هلا وحكم إذا قبلها عقبالها أفر ميرا ومين هذا عقبات الكواد وحي كتم هذا الدولة دي كتم هذا لبات يو كوبات وحاسبوا كنا حتى الشعب اللي كتم هذا سواء طائرة تكون وين الكلاب وحاكلوا الجلو جناح سطو عقبات اللي كتم هذا إلى في الكود ليش يعني الدلة وأكيسان هو خاركود الحرة وأكيسان وحقيب كأ جناح سطها قيب كأ يقرأوا لو حاجة تباوفل لبهايو أما هذا نقام كوحيد يرامضت هو بحيث الدولة حتى مار ولا إنه سوق وتأ هذا أنت سوت عقبات أكيد هذا قبلها بوصوها يجوا حق جوريئة وحلي هذا ethical يعني unethical demands يعني وابس عمر كي تجا وحليها هي كابتن البرامج وصوتها لكن يعني شغل بدرس الجي حتى عنده ساس ولا سمين قبل بدر يكون عين وعرفته ثلاث وحركين جور عاصمات استارات ساس كدوديس لكن والباقي تلفت كذا كجرتها iyaga markii la soo hadla marka dhibaato isku yimaada laftirkooda gabdhaha dhibaatada isku yimaada waxa waaye waxaa arkaysaa gabadh kudhaysa weliye ahay haddana wadato kaar ciidanka booliiskay ka wadataa way socotaa waxay wadataa kaar masuuliya wadataa way socotaa kaar wasaaradda caafimaadkay wadataa way socotaa intee u socotaa weliyaad tahay kaarkaa weliyaa ku ekaaw laakiin haddii gabadha weli iyaga laftirkooda hataa shaqo isjaajuusa xataa mararka qaar iyagaa taas caqabad igu gooni ah waay tan weriyaasha markii laga soo hadlo oo laga hadlaayo ammaanka in markii la kobargareenaayo ragga xataa waa aadi layihiin taas caqabadaha ku geedaan waa la ogyahay qofku dhiiran kara maanta waddada marka almuqrab inuu ka dugo xaggaas aado sheekaag soo sameynaa hadduusa ciidan weyn ma jirayso ciidanka aawadanaysid waa in ciidan dowlad ahaadaan ciidankaas dowladda markay aawadanaysidna baaya sidaa tahay adiga meesha hal dhinac soo oranaysaa taas anaga yaa ku dhiiran laha xataa idinkoo macdallah xoogaa waa dareemi kartaa meesha idinkii maraysa marka widaaya soo dhow aadna golaha warbaahinta qaranka ah baatil waaye
And don't take out on him everything, because I don't think that is fair on him as well.
It's okay.
And we are not to blame here.
I know,
We
it's
just
okay.
need to
I
get someone who
hear this all the
familiar
time.
with the topic, and that is why the is here. And the other thing is, Sagal, please, you need to control this, because I feel like this is getting out of hand and it's getting into topics that we're not here to discuss now. We're here to discuss of challenges faced by Somali journalists when covering peace and security agenda. And it is a really big topic that now is essential and it needs our attention as a journalist, whether we are male or female. This is a really topic and we need you here. As the women, we face the double of the challenge. That is what we need. We invited you, men, because we need you guys to support us on these agendas. And if you are not there, we cannot do it, because you are the leaders now. To be honest with you, even as a media, women organization leader, we have few of us lead, mainly as a men. And now that's why we are invited you here, so you can support us, but not to make like this argument. Don't see us as an enemy. See us as a partner. Give us, now Abdulghani was talking about not having enough female journalists in any other aspects, like when we need to discuss on health or politics. We have enough. The thing is, we did not get used to, sending women to out reporting the sensitive issues. We, as a media, it's not an option for them. It's always the man. We see women who has been in the media for over decades. A man who maybe was in the industry for 2 years, he takes the role instead of the woman who is well-talented, have the skills and knows everything, rather than her. The media outlets, the managers, they send men, and this is a practice that happened to us. We've all seen it. This is what we need to, overcome. We need to do something about it. So because we have more women, female journalists, and then, you see, as a woman, me personally, I feel women's problem, I can feel it. Whether she's a politic or she works public sectors, wherever she is, I can feel her because we have the same feeling, we have the same challenge. It's not only women. So we have more women, we can cover more women issues. So that is what we need. And that's why, Wish, who is the media, one of the media managers, we need people like him, he can push the agenda with us. So let's come back to the discussion, and we have our differences, I understand. Let's book that again, we can discuss another time, not the right time, not the place right now. Thank you.
It's another commission or a group, media group, that feel that they were not invited here or they were not included as part of the process of making this workshop happen. They feel that, in particular, he strengthened the comments made by Madame Dunia on having the media commission being entirely government biased or entirely selected by the government, and they don't contain any independent members, so they're all from the government. He also feels that it's actually quite biased to the government, and therefore it will ultimately curb the development of Somalia media independence, and therefore there is no fairness. He also went ahead and then talked about the challenges that media, overall Somali media has, whether it's female or male. He said these are the challenges. He said there are 4. The government is a challenge itself because the government wants its own narrative to be released, its own narrative to be advocated and promoted. Al-Shabaab is the second challenge. They also go and assassinate media reporters that also are against their own narrative. Third group is the business community, because the business community also go and commission attacks on reporters, because obviously they have their own interest, and if they feel that they're being that their interest is not aligned with what the media is reporting, that they go ahead and assassinate reporters. Fourthly, it's also non-government actors who also are not Al-Shabaab, but are the remnants or the remaining of the Somali warlords who have their own armed militia who can also attack and endanger the lives of media personalities. Media individuals, not personalities. But in addition, women in media also face sexual exploitation. Sometimes when they're being employed or when they're being invited to let's say, cover a particular story, she could be sexually exploited for getting that job opportunity. So it could be like sexual favoritism before she's able to conduct that job. So that is another extra situation that females face, because as I covered earlier, all the radio CEOs are all men. So those in charge in the decision making are all men. Therefore, sexual exploitation is one of the issues that women in media face. Other challenges also women face is that because they operate as sole reporters, they don't have IDs, so they end up having multiple IDs, like one from the Ministry of Defense, one from the Ministry of Health, and other IDs, so therefore there's not also an alignment. So basically there's not a cohesion also from women in media in Somalia. And then I think to summarize, basically, going forward, if there's going to be another workshop, it has to be more inclusive so that all media representatives are invited. But at the moment, this team, the Somali Syndicate journalists, feel that the commission itself, the media commission, is not independent and is run and selected by the government.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now with
topics such as the women and peace security, I feel like we are halfway there, but there's still a lot of gap in terms of what kind of stories, particularly when we speak about women and peace and security, if it's something that is of great relevance to the society or something that is big and that is supposed to be talked about, then perhaps they might give a little bit priority in covering that story. But if it's something that they consider not very important, I feel like it all depends with the editor's mindset and the institution's mindset on what they think is worthy of an airtime or not. So there's still a lot of challenge in that because, again, the media institutions have their own perceptions on what they consider important to report on. So, and specifically, if it's an issue concerning women, they mostly, from my experience, they like to portray stories that portray women as victims, or when there's a victim that is a woman. But when it comes to issues that women are taking charge, women are doing incredible work, women are taking leadership roles, you don't get to hear that often in media institutions. But if it's a certain leader or a certain women in the community has faced maybe a harassment, they like that story that portray women as victims, but not rather women as role models, women as governance and peace and security advocates, so we don't get to hear that much. And also, if they report on such stories, they normally, again, prefer to give that opportunity to male journalists because they are deemed to be more suitable to speak on such stories. So I'll say we still have a lot of journey to make sure that we mind that gap.
At the end of the day, it comes down to what gets you more views, what gets you more audience. And if a topic like women and taking a role in peace and security and gets you less views, you prioritize other topics. For example, when your audience and prefer when you talk about politics, or prefer when you talk about security, and you have you want to talk about peace and security led by women, and it really affects the priorities. Media outlets will result to prioritizing other topics other than the women, peace and security. So I agree with that point.
I think one of my favorite authors is someone called Martha Gellhorn. And she was born in 1908 in the US, and she died in the 1990s. And she's referred to as a war reporter. And her first conflict was the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s, and her last conflict was in the 1990s in Nicaragua. But her first reporting was for a magazine called Collier's Home Journal, and it was referred to as a woman's magazine because her work didn't get picked up at all. And why I found her, and she's now known as one of the most famous female war journalists, but the question is why her work didn't get picked up was because she was focusing on issues that men didn't see. So men covering a conflict would talk about how many dead, where the operation went, maybe a bit of like some famous person showing up. She started looking at how people were being affected, men and women and children. It wasn't that she focused entirely on women, but she saw issues in a completely different way because of her education and perspective. And I think that's, for me, the difference between what we would call gender-sensitive reporting to gender-transformative reporting. She gave women, and the issues of women, peace, what we would call women, peace and security now, agency. She took control of the issues as opposed to just try to reflecting issues. And I think that's the big difference that we probably need to manage here. So how do you get there, right? So to create agency is moving. I would totally agree with Ifra, is that often the issues are seen that you're a victim as opposed to in control of the specific situation. We're not identifying the issues that connect. And I think what your point is really important about, okay, how do you get views? How do you make these issues relevant to the entire community? Why do people want to understand and click on the page? So that's probably work that we need to do. In regions that are hard to access, that's about sources. I mean, we have the same issue with human rights. How do we get sources that we can trust? But we're talking about health, for example. There's so many issues that we could be covering from a conflict perspective in the health sector where you do have sources. So I think there's work to do, and it's probably a really important piece of analysis that something like the Somalia Medians Women's Organization could pick up, or others. Thank you.
Somalia and arrimahanaytun oo dumarka amniga iyo nabadda priority ahaan oo xoogan ma saaro ama maxay tahay iska indha tiraa oo waxyaabo kale ayaa ma jiraan waxyaabo kale oo inuu media xoog ka saaro oo arrimahanaytun oo women peace and security oo xoog u saaran maxaa keeni kara ma jirtaa maxay tahay policies ama maxay tahay qodobeen oo maxay ahaatay gender sensitive oo dumarka maxay ahaatay arrimahooda si oo gaar u fiirinayo oo la sameyn karo oo aqabeenayo markay noqoto warbixinta oo laga sii daayo women peace and security su-aashaan lixaad laysma weydiinin laakiin waa soo noqon doonaa marka waxaa ku bilaabatay walaashan ifraax waxay sheegtay in maxay ahaatay ay jiraan oo laga tabiyo dumarka laakiin marka laga tabinayo arrimaha dumarka oo waxyaabo oo sensationalize loo sameeyo oo adiga gabar dhibaataysan leh laga hadlo laakiin wixii aad aan maxay tahay loo sii faahfaahinin in maxay tahay qofka xataa tabinayo uu xataa nin raga yahay oo dumar ahayn in arrimahaani badanaa maxay tahay aad aan loo sii fiirin oo lacala hadii meel dhib ka dhaco kale dhibkaas guud la fiiriyo laakiin aad loo sii hoosgelin dhibka maxay tahay oo dumarka markay noqoto arrimahaani oo dumarka nabadda iyo amniga magaalkan cabdiqani yaa maxay tahay qodobo muhiim asagana sheegay cabdiqani wuxuu dhahay horta koow wakaaladaha dhan oo warbixinta wadanka ku ugu waaweyn waxaa waaye shakhsiyaad baa iska leh waa inayna faa'iido sameeyaan dadkana maxay tahay haddaa company leedahay waxaa xooga saaraysa wixii markaas faa'iido ka sameynaayo sheekadii faa'iido ku keenayso dhinaca media waxaa waa viewing inaad viewing badan heshid so waxaa laga yaabaa waxyaabaha inay badanaa in maxay tahay xooga la saarin ama ninka editorka choicekiisa ay tahay oo isdhahayo wixii markaas muhiim ah dadka ay xiiseynayaan so that I think walaashan ifraaxna hadda hadalkaas ku dhawaaqday waxay tiri lacala di sheeko oo adiga markaas dumarka saameyso oo gabadh la victimize gareeyay ayaa laga hadlaa laakiin taas ma ogtaa dadka markaas xiiseynayo fiirinayo so marka cabdiqani iyo ifraax hadalkooda wasdax galay waa muhiim because badanaa viewingkii waxay ku xiran tahay sheekada markaas muhiimka oo ninka editorka isdhahayo dadkii ayaa rabaan so taas ayaa marka waxaa keenaysaa in arrimahaanaytun oo dumarka iyo amniga iyo nabadda aan xoog loo saarno mararka qaarkood la iska indhatiro ama si yaroo guud ahaan oo yar loo sheego bis loo soo tabiyo Kirsten kadib hadashay waxay tiri iyada ahaan qofka dadka ee aad u xushmayso oo waxaa waa islaan oo gabar oo Mareykan ahayd Martha Gellhorn oo 1908 lagu dhalay Mareykanka oo ahayd hadda 90 dhimatay oo maxay tahay reporter oo arrimahaanaysan conflictiga oo ka shaqeynaysa waxay ka shaqeysay inay ka soo hadasho dagaalkii oo Isbaanishka dhexdooda oo 1930 ahaa kadibna ilaa ay ka dhimanaysan dagaalkii hadda oo Nicaragua way ka shaqeysay iyada howlaheeda mabduucyada ay ka hadlaysa badanaa wuxuu ahaa mabduucyo oo ragga media ah nimanka markay wararka sheegayaan ay iska indhatiraan because waxaa laga yaabaa nimanka marka dagaal laga hadlayo ninka inay fiiriyaan meesha nin journal tagamiya ama nin famous ah meesha tagay inay waxaas ay ka fargarayaan Martha marka iyada bulshadii ay la fariisan jirtay iyada marka inta badan howlaheeda waxyaabaha ay qorto lagama hadli jirin ama maxay tahay media waaweyn ma imaan jirin only maxay tahay journal la dhaho Collier's Home ayaa maxay tahay howlaheeda sheegi jiray so marka guud ahaan waxay ka hadlaysaa yes waa laga yaabaa waxyaabo sheekooyinka qaarkood in dumarka la iska indhatiro oo waxyaabihii picture-ka ka weynaa laga hadlo laakiin maxay tahay in maxay tahay la kofargareeyo oo maxay tahay dumarka iyo dhibkooda iyo bulshada dhibkooda iyada marka dagaalada ay tagi jirtay dagaalada ee warbixinta ee ka soo sameyn jirtay inta badan waxay fiirin jirtay meelaha dad kale ay iska indhatireen ama ay iska iloobeen oo ah dadkii bulshadii ragaba xataa ku jiraan dadka dhibaataysnaa so marka waxay u baahan tahay in maxay tahay priority lagu sameeyo marka arrimahaanaytun oo women peace and security laga hadlayo laakiin caqabada ugu waaweyn oo la isaga indhatiro waxaa waaye ratingkii ganacsigu ku xirneen in loo arko wax muhiim ah so challenge-kaasaytun iyo caqabadahaas marka way jiraan
marka hore assalaamu calaykum waa idin salaamayaa dhammaan markii xigta aada ugu faraxsanahay inaan ka soo qayb galo doodan xiisaha leh oo lagu soo bandhigayo dhibaatooyinka ay la kulmaan wariyaasha dumarka iyo waliba sidii uga qayb qaadan lahaayeen nabadda iyo security-ga iyo sida uu isku ilaalin lahaa qofka saxafiga ah horta wax badanaa halkaa laga sheego discussion ah. Inta badan wariyaasha ma helaan trading ama tababaro la xiriira siday uga shaqeyn lahaayeen arrimaha nabadda ah iyo warbixinada ama waxyaabaha bulshada ay u baahan yihiin sida haweenka oo kale dhibaatooyinka la kulmaan. Sidaas ayadoo ay tahay oo aanan haysan tababar ama aqoon buuxda aan u helin, haddana waa isku daynaa inaan sameyno arrimahan haweenka security-ga ama noloshooda iyo waxyaabaha la xiriira. Waxyaabaha hadda ka hor warbixino aan sameeyay waxaa ka mid ahaa haweeney isku dayday inay badbaadiso ciidan gaaraya ilaa 300 oo ciidan. Xilligaasna koox al-shabaab ka tirsanaa waxay rabeen in gurigeeda ay dhex maraan si ay ciidankaas u weeraraan gurigeeda oo xirada ka soo horeeyay ay rabeen inay guriga dhex maraan, kadibna xiradaas ay saas ku tagaan, kadibna ciidankaas ay weeraraan ayagoo ku weesna baskoolado iyo sidoo kale bambooyin. Xilligaas sheekadaasi waa la helayaa, wali way ku jirtaa Facebook-ga. Xilligaasi waxay ka timid bakaaraha, xilli waxa ahayd galab, gurigeeda u soo hoyaadaysay waxay kula kulantay 4 xubnood oo kooxdaas ka tirsan oo guriga ku sugan oo raba in irida dambe ee guriga inay ka sii talaabaan. Ayadana markaas hooyo waxay ahayd oo miskiin ah oo danyar ah oo xoogsi ka timaaday oo ilmaheeda nolol maalmeedka u soo raadsanaysay. Kadib markay aragtay nimanka inay huweysan yihiin, aaday way ku dhagtay, way u diiday inay ka gudbaan gurigeeda inay dhex maraan oo waddo ay ka dhigtaan si ciidankaas ay u weeraraan. Markay arkeen inaysan ka foqeynin oo ay aad u qeylinayso, kadib waxay bilaabeen hubkii ay wadeen bambooyinkii inay guriga ku qarxiyeen. Meeshaasoo walaasheed ay ku dhimatay, hal gabar ay walaasheed ka tagtay, iyadana dhaawaca waxaa ka soo gaaray lugta. Gabadheedii curud ku xigeenta ahaayeen sidoo kale lugaa ku naafooday oo naafay ku noqotay, lugay waxaa ka gaaray familka qayb ka mid ah dhaawaca soo gaaray, walaasheedna meeshaas ku weysay. Gabadhaasi dowladda Soomaaliya markii dambe la wareegtay oo aaday uga soo muuqatay internetka. Kadib sanad kadibna aniga sheekadeeda helay ayadoo waliba banaanka taala oo caruurteeda iyo ayada taalada daljirka daasoon meel u dhow, guri cid ay siiyeen iridda agteeda meel ah, sariirtii iyo alaabtan u yaalaan oo aysan haysan meel ay seexato, meel ay ku noolaato. Guri oo loo kireeyana 1 sano oo lacaga lagu lahaa oo dowladda iyada damaanad qaaday. Sanadkii lacagta ay dhiibi weysay dowladda, gurigii cidda ay ka soo bixiyeen, caruurtii walaasheed ay ka geeriyootay, iyada kuweedii oo qaar dhibaatooyin dhaawacii ka soo gaaray weerarkaasi ay ku yaalaan, iyo ayadii oo aan shaqaysan karin, sidoo kalena ay ka cabsanayso kooxdii marka horeba ay isku dhigtisay u badbaadiso. Sheekadaasi dabcan waa sameeyay baraha bulshada geliyay, inkastoo ay dowladii ka soo jawaabtay oo mar kale lacagtii deenta laga bixiyay guriga 1 sano oo ijaarka lagu lahaa, ayadana nolosheeda ay dib u heshay maadaama sida ay sheegtay haddii banaanka aadana weerar wali la raadsanayo, ilmahan ay u shaqaysan karin, caruurtina sidaas noloshooda ay noqotay. Marka anaga waa isku daynaa inaan sameyno sheekooyinka xiisaha leh ama sheekooyinka bulshada u baahan yihiin ama dadka la hilmaamay oo codkooda oo meel dheer gaaraynin. Inkastoo aanan haysan tababaro aad u buuxa ama khibrad arrimahaas naga caawinayo si aan u sameyno, wadankana inta badan security ahaan waxaa laga yaabaa meelaha qaar inaysan ku saacidin inaad ka sameyso warbixino. Hadda halkaas uga baxay sheekooyinkaasi, wariyaasha dhibaatooyin badan ay qabaan gaar ahaan dumarka. aniga idin hortaagan dhibaato waxa iga soo gaartay xilli aan report ku jira, dadka dhan warkayga inta badan way la socdaan. Marka rabto inaa wax tabiso wariyaha kaliya waxaa ku filan inaa inta dhibaato leeyahay qalabka kaliya adag inaa ka qaadato. dabcan ciidamada amaanka qaar kamid ah aniga jir dileen oo dhibaato i gaarsiiyeen xilligaas oo aan shaqada ku jiray, dad bulsho oo codkooda meel dheer aan gaareen oo dhibaateysan aan wareysanayay. marka wariyaasha caqabad badan ay ku shaqeeyaan, dhibaatooyin badan ay ku shaqeeyaan, mana helaan xuquuqaadka ay u baahan yihiin, ilaalin ma ka haystaan dawladda. dhinacyadii kalena dhibaatooyin ay kala kulmaan oo beegsi ah haddaa hadasho kooxdaasna waxaa waaye listiga u galee dowladdiina mararka qaar dhibaatooyina kala kulanaa marka dhiba waxaan ku shaqeynaa arrin riski ah annaga dhiirigelino mana helno tababaro ama waxyaabo ama meel xitaa haddii dhibaatooyina loo geysto kale aan ka heli karno
reporters, female reporters. Her introduction was given by Marian, but I will go into what she has described. She said that what they face, I mean, the biggest challenge also on a daily basis is the lack of advanced training when it comes to reporting on issues focusing on women, peace and security. However, they still go ahead and utilize whatever limited resources that they have to conduct and report on issues that target women, peace and security. One of the key stories that she worked on was when she covered the story of a businesswoman, a Somali woman, who protected 300 Somali security forces from an imminent attack of Al-Shabaab. Basically, 4 Al-Shabaab soldiers camped out in her house. When she came back from work, she went to her house and she found out that there were 4 men of Al-Shabaab hiding out in her house, planning to attack a base, Somali security force base not far from our house. When she refused and she's asked them to leave her house, they in turn detonated a bomb in our house, and that lady lost her sister and her niece got injured. And she lost all her, she lost her housing and everything, because she also became a target to Al-Shabaab, because obviously she uncovered the planned attack on the Somali military base. That lady then obviously became destitute. She stayed with friends and relatives, and the government has vowed to help her out, but that support did not come on time. So as part of our story and the coverage that she did on that lady, the government finally was able to come through and compensate that lady and give her some housing and some assistance, living assistance. Following up on the challenges, she said that she herself personally encountered physical assault by the Somali security forces when trying to cover a story. She herself is a victim, but a survivor, but she has seen that, and she said there are also targeted attacks from Al-Shabaab, because again, it's the narrative. If you go against a narrative from one of the armed terror associates, then you also become a target. And when you're the media person, you are like the first person that they target. Often you are vulnerable, you don't have a protection, so you are susceptible. So as a woman, you have that extra barrier. They also operate in risky areas that also deem them to be exposed to a personal harm. So to come back and summarize what she said is, the key thing is actually focused training on how to cover women, peace and security, in order that those stories then become stories that are deemed and important to be covered by media outlets. So when you have the trainings and the advocate, and be able to advocate for subjects on women, peace and security, then in return the media houses will be able to cover those stories. She said we need capacity building and training empowerment in order for us to cover women, peace and security. Mohammed Diro is from Safer World. Safer World, it's an international NGO. The key comments he made were that the media in Somalia operates in the dogmatic era. Basically, the adaptation of new ways of reporting has not happened. It's mainly reactive, so it reports on events that took place. However, there is not a strong investigative journalism mechanism in the Somalia media reporting sector. So there has not been a resource allocated to create an optimal way of reporting issues regarding women, peace and security. And overall, investigative correspondence has not been implemented in Somalia due to lack of skill set. The other issues that take place that he said that were also mentioned by the other participants and the panelists were challenges with regards to the assault and harassment in workplaces. Harassment at workplaces, he said, is the highest and the most repetitive obstacle that reporters face. Obviously, women are on the forefront, but also young men who work in the sector, whereby women in the media sector face challenges such as if she's going to be promoted, sometimes she's then subjected to favoritism, sexual favoritism, in order for her to succeed and reach the next point of her career. However, young men, youth also in the sector face similar, but not necessarily as much sexual, but more like bullying, basically asking or tasking the young reporter to do errands, run errands basically for the senior. So can you shine my shoes? Can you organize my tea break or coffee? Basically not allowing the young and the susceptible group in that workspace to flourish. So workplace harassment is also a challenge that media outlets, those who work in media, face. And finally also he said that if such situation takes place, if bullying or sexual harassment takes place, there is not a clear mechanism of reporting. So basically if you're reporting, then maybe you might be reporting to somebody who is also in that same gang, but basically he said there's not a clear reporting mechanism to settle a grievance once is discontent or experienced bullying.
women peace and security ahaan wax ugu shaqeynaa diyaarani ahay inaan ila shaqeeyo laakiin seeska qabsiga hadda 2025 aan ku jirnaa 5 years kala aan soconaa kaliya le waxa toosinaysin oo shaqadeen waxa uu nigu toosmi karo mandate-ka policy-giini iyo mechanism saddexda mandate-kiini hadda toosisin mandate-kiini wada shaqeyn ahaan iyo idinka xuquuqdiina anigu jirto xagga waa ku dagaalam kartiin laakiin dagaalo qajajac maaha dagaalo sidii legality amal oo sharci ahaan wixii toosma mechanism marka anaka federalism ahaan u qaadanay federalism ahaan maxaa leenahay line ministry maxaa leenahay FMS ka maxaa ila district council formation ka women peace and security ahaan maxaa jiro marka mechanism ka muxuu ku hagayaa ina wada shaqeyn waa ku qasbantiin rab ama rabin dagaal maaha ana leeyahay anaka leena maaha ina ilbaxdina rabtin Soomaa ka baxdeen wixii xuquuqdiina fiiriya mechanism ka wada shaqeey waa ku qasbantii wasaaradda noqoto mise guddi madax banaan anaka diyaar wanina kaale aan sala wada shaqeyno wixii aad rabtina anaka wadayni kaliya maaha wasla wadaageena ministry of information ministry of security ministry of kulli wixii ma aragtay nalay ma isla fadhiisana mechanism kan qoranayna ya lead kareena marka qofka lead kareena wasaaradda information duya ayaka lead kareena anaka nooka coordination ahana u noqonayna hada anaka nayna waa sidii idinka hadii waa sidii imaa miiska saara 2025 aan ku jirno ilaa 2030 waa ina ka baxno waxaan iska qabsiga marka intaas kaliya aan ku dhaafaa wasaaradda ahaan waa mahadsantiin
from the Ministry of Women and Human Rights. Her comments were mainly to emphasize the role of women and human rights, that the Ministry of Women and Human Rights is ready to collaborate and work with all the government entities with regards to women, peace and security, and also work with the media on issues regarding to women, peace and security, because they deal with that. It's the line ministry that is in charge of women, peace and security. She also urged that in the future we have a discourse and maybe we avoid having a grudge or how do I say, an engagement that leads to a conflict. So basically, she said, going forward, let's work together, and that the Ministry of Women and Human Rights is ready and available to work with all the entities with regards to women, peace and security.
I'm sorry, Kalshan, that is standing too close for us, and we are still talking. I am not going to say a lot. I just want to highlight two things that my colleague from the Save the Children, or Save the World, Save the World said, not having, not that violation against journalists not being recorded. That I would like you to, assure you that that is happening. My colleagues from SJS, they do, we do. Last year, I can share with you that we even have the 2024 report on women freedom, press freedom, women press freedom in Somalia. And I can tell you that last year we recorded the highest violations against women journalists, which was really sad. We normally do not have women assassinated or killed. We've seen a lot of SGBV, but no assassination. And last year, sadly, we have one journalist, a female journalist. Yeah, originally she was from Sweden. She has been assassinated, and that was sad, and it was just scared all of us. So we have the mechanism. We record it. We all every year we present it. Sadly, there's no change because there's no legal protection for us. So it's every year it's the same way. Every year it gets worse. It's not like we're getting anywhere. We need protection, especially female journalists. We face a lot of SGBV, gender-based violence, even in the media itself. Like where we are working for, we face a lot of challenges. So we have it, and everybody who wants that, we can even share with them. You can access it. Like it's for public use. We are doing for public use, and we are looking for, the reason we are publishing this is we're looking for solutions for change.
xogayaha genderka ee ururka suxufiyiinta Soomaaliyeed ee SJS waxaa rabay inaan xoojiyo wax yar waxay Shukri Caabi sheegtay oo ah in gabdhaha aysan helin tababaro ku filan si ay arrimahan badanka uga hadlaan ka SJS ahaan markasta waxa isku daynaa in mataqaana kobcino awoodda gabdhaha suxufiyiinta Soomaaliyeed labadii sano ee la soo dhaafay waxa qabanayna tababaro gabdhaha bis qaas u ah si ay gabdhaha awood uga helaan in arrimaha humanitarian ka ku saabsan ay aad uga hadlaan iyo sheekooyinka sameeyaan iyo soo tabiyaan arinta kale oo inta badan laga hadlo oo ka dhacdo goobaha shaqada gabdhaha suxufiyiinta ama goob kasto shaqo ka dhacdo markasta marka laga hadlo ama gabar ay meel soo istaagtay dhahdo dhibaatadaas oo wiil igu sameeyay bulshadeena dhan dhibaatooyina kala kulana waalidiinta kala kulana bulshadiya kala kulana meelo badan nagala dacaydaya marka si arintaasi uga gudubno waxa sameynay xitaa ka sameeyay film drama oo 15 episodes oo adaaban doontiin ramadaanka bil media laga soo deyn doono caqabadaha gabdhaha ay kala kulmaan goobaha shaqada in jirkooda looga bedesho dhibaatooyin badan ay la kulmaan aniga qayb ka ah filmkaas aadan u faraxsanahay in qayb ka ahaado as drama ugu gudbino bal bulshada in ay si u dareemaan in filmkaas qayb weyn ka ahaado aad u faraxsanahay warjeena in aad daawan doontiin
said that the issue relating to workplace harassment is there. They try and report on it, but what's missing is specific training on how to report on issues like that, especially women, peace and security. She also said the next month in March there will be 16 episodes drama, 15 episodes of drama based on workplace harassment. That will touch on not only in media but in schools and in other sectors that highlight the struggles and the challenges that women face in the workforce, and it will be aired through Bilan Media. Mahuran. So drama is called Mahuran. Mahuran means necessity. Yes. In Somali. Yeah. So it's necessity. And then our last speaker, she's not from the media, but she had opinions on how to go about dealing with the issue of workplace harassment. She suggested that maybe there should be an intermediate but independent office that deals with when reporting such assaults or aggression towards women in the media. So that was her suggestion and the comments that she had on this.
Listen, to push this, but thank you. But what might be of interest, 2 years ago we did a national human rights film competition, and to my surprise, but I wasn't one of the jurors, the winning entry was called Kin, which was exactly about this issue. So it might be, and it was aired actually on state TV last year, but it might be interesting to pull together a forum around that, and particularly after the 15 episodes air, and to get people's reaction and do something with that piece to start socializing, particularly now that we have the Somali Labour Code, which will now have to be implemented. So there's a bit of a momentum, which I'm sure we've got willing partners to pick up on. So thank you for the privilege of today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to hear all these wonderful comments and suggestions from all of you. I think also another thing that was mentioned a lot within the discussions we had today was about capacity building. And I think capacity building is often just mentioned as a word, but not really. Like, we had a lot of trainings, but are these trainings really making a meaningful impact in our work, in our how we do things? So I would like to urge everyone, if we are participating in a workshop or a capacity building training, we have to make it something that is not one size fits all, but rather something that is tangible, something that is impactful. And just these few minutes that we had here, you can tell there is so much knowledge within the room. And how can we explore those knowledge? Like, how can we bring that tacit knowledge within our operations, within our work, and benefit from each other? So capacity building, yes, but capacity building with a strategic one, which works for, which is like how structured in a way that everyone can benefit and everyone can bridge that gap that all the challenges that they are facing. So thank you.
And thank you, everyone. And a lot of beautiful things has been said. And just to finish on, I want to observe one thing. All hope is not lost. We talked about how the situation is bad, but then if you look at it, the situation is changing. The generations, all the generations, and faced even harder situations. And current old generations have still strong perceptions, but with the younger generations, I think we are open-minded, and even the ones that be after us will be more open-minded. So I think it's a matter of time. The situation is changing, but we need to be a catalyst to fast-track it. So, and I just want to urge everyone that it's everyone's responsibility. That you don't just report it. When you're reporting Women in Peace, you don't just report it just to portray or cover the message, but you have a responsibility to guide or to lead the narrative. Your aim should be to shape and to guide the population into having meaningful discussions and coming with outcomes that affect. Thank you.
Thank the panelists. Thank all of those of you who contributed to this debate. I think we have shed light on a broad spectrum of topics that all relate to the WPS agenda. I would characterize the discussions that we have had today as passionate. There have been many passionate interventions. And what does that tell us? That tells us that the topic that we are addressing is pertinent and relevant, important is what I was going to say. But it also tells us that there are many unsolved problems, because problems that are solved don't elicit passion. But it also tells us that there is a lot of energy out there to address those unsolved issues and problems. All of you who made interventions got well-deserved applause. There is one person whose tremendous efforts have gone basically unapplauded, and that is that of our interpreter, Madame. A big applause for her. Thank you. So that concludes today's event. The only thing that remains now is to invite you all to lunch. Hope as many of you are able to stay. Bon appetit, please.